Thank you for joining me, Ross Allen Skorzewski, for another morning cup of crazy. So let's do it, shall we? Come on now. Take your coffee. Sip, sip, sip. Hopefully it's organic. Beautiful. Conflict resolution. This is going to be another quick one. I'm taking these down about 10 to 15 minutes so you can have some real content to chew on and to implement for your day and let you get back to your morning. Conflict resolution. Can't always avoid it. Don't always avoid it. There are people that do, and we think that we can just sweep some of these issues under the carpet and that it's just going to go away, never to be dealt with, resolved, and maybe we'll just forget about it. The problem is we don't. There's going to be an image that, it's a link that we're going to give to you, because as I was kind of prepping for today, there were many articles that I was reading, and this one really stuck out to me because it's got 8 stages of conflict resolution and plus a graph or this kind of circle that looks like things are spiraling out of control. It almost looks like a hurricane, and I think that's kind of what ends up happening when we don't do conflict resolution well. This graph to me perfectly explains, and the 8 steps that go along with it, to where and when conflict resolution begins, when it's actually done right, or if it's not done correctly, what happens. And this graph, it looks like a hurricane. And think about that. There are stages to a hurricane. There's the front end, and everybody's embracing and getting ready for impact, and it's intentional, and we're unified, and then it comes the calm, and we think everything is good, but then there's the backside of the storm, and if it's not done properly, and you're not ready, and you don't learn how to conflict well, then there's damage, there's mass chaos, and then there's more pieces to pick up at the end, and there's more to repair in regards to professional relationships and personal relationships when conflict goes awry. So just in a little bit here, Lizzie's going to post that link for you. It is from a Christian organization, and their main kind of focus is talking about how to do conflict resolution on the mission field. As a former pastor working in the church, I've done many missions trips, and even working within the church. To be honest with you, the church, to a degree, is nothing more than just another form of business. And when you're doing life inside of the church and working, and you're working with other people, there is going to be conflict. There's differing opinions. As we described last week and explained, this is what conflict is. It's an incompatibility between 2 or more opinions, principles, or interests. That's inevitable when you bring 2 or more people to the table to talk about a forward progressing movement that's going to accomplish a mission. Churches, the Wellness Way, even the unity between a husband and wife, there is a plan. There's a forward mentality that's thinking about the betterment of that family, its existence, and what next year is going to look like, or 5 years, 10 years. There's a mission, there is a goal, but there are going to be differing opinions. We talked about not letting emotion run amok in conflict, because when emotion comes in, it really begins to trump our ability to be rational in conflict resolution. When emotion comes in, sometimes we take things more personal and we get more focused on feelings instead of task, okay? So in this link that you are going to have made available to you, go through it, read it, and look at the 8 stages. But in conflict resolution, what do you do when you believe you've done everything right, that you've brought the best representation of yourself to that table? And you kind of have, but what if I've done everything right and we still haven't resolved? I want us to sometimes really get back to some of the best things that make us who we are. And that's what sometimes, I think for me, is putting into motion that when I'm going into conflict resolution is, like I said, doing my best to make sure that my emotions are at bay. I might be screaming on the inside and wanting to pop my top, but I'm keeping myself calm, cool, and collected. I'm trying to make sure that what I'm receiving from the person who's bringing the conflict resolution or the conflict to the table with me, trying to make sure that I'm listening for elements of truth. And knowing that even in the midst of personal attacks or things that are being said that are a little on the emotive side, that I do my best to get through that and don't own that and allow myself to get amped and ready to go back on the personal attack, to where we were talking about last week, that someone's got to win and someone has to lose in this kind of concept of the battle royale when it comes to conflict resolution. But to learn how to just sit there, keep your emotions at bay, listen for truths, speak in a black and white task-oriented manner, but also bring empathy, bring sympathy, bring the idea that you would consider others' thoughts, needs, and interests above your own to the table while doing conflict resolution, because if you can do so, you'll make sure that you're not the one that's just going to walk away from this winner, ding, 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 because that's not really the ultimate goal. When conflict resolution does not feel good. It sometimes just outright, I'll say it, it sucks sometimes, okay? And especially when you're really getting called out on something that you need to take ownership of. But really, it's getting to that place of resolve. But what if? What if you bring everything to the table, you do everything right, and you still don't feel like there is resolve? What do you do? A lot of times in my current situation, whether it's on a relational level, whether it's my wife, whether it's my kids, or even on a professional level, we get through the task, we get through the talk, and one of the biggest things that I like to do is I like to revisit. I like to ask questions. I like to make sure that I'm really hearing what it is that the person is trying to bring to the table and get resolved. I like to go back and ask questions because sometimes feelings, they're super amped, and you're going into conflict resolution and you have to sit there and endure that moment, and you might not walk out of there high-fiving, hugging, embracing, and big hoorah, let's get back to the mission. Sometimes, the emotion still carries on for a period of time after some of these meetings and conflict resolution meetings are had. But what do you do? Remove the sting of personal attack. That, to me, in all honesty, if I could say to you today, in the second edition of conflict resolution, is depersonalize what it is that people are bringing to the table. Even if it gets personal, even if someone does go to the place where they're on this character assassination for you because they're super jacked and angry, don't own it unless you need to. And if you need to, make the corrections so that you don't have to revisit this type of situation again. But if you're really sitting there and you're listening and you're putting into motion a plan of action to get yourself out of what it is that you're talking about and you're working towards self-betterment, depersonalize any sting. Because if you don't depersonalize it, you're going to walk away from that and you are going to have a skewed perception of that person that you are hoping to do life with tomorrow, the next day, months from now, years from now, whether that's on the workplace environment, your CEO, your coworker, your manager, your wife, or whomever that might be. Depersonalize anything. Because when you do that, at least then you're not going to the rumor mill and putting on a hat and all of a sudden just coming up with all these concocted assumptions as to why that person is responding and talking to you and going on a character assassination hunt about you. When you depersonalize it and just get to the black and white issue and you're task focused, you can walk away and you can put a successful plan into motion. That's where you can begin to do what is right versus what feels right. Because if you just make it about a personal attack against yourself, you're going to go a whole lot of places of crazy, and you're not going to get to that place of resolve and peace that you need to be able to advance forward in that relationship, professional or personal. There's always going to be hangups. There's always going to be hiccups, okay? One of the things that we talk about here in the Wellness Way with our personal growth and development, when do we know that people are really growing in this personal growth strategy, this kind of trajectory that they're on for the best representation of themselves being brought about every day? It's the moment that when you experience frustration, but how quick you get to action. That's when you know that growth is taking place. And in conflict resolution, everybody's going to experience it. We're all going to have it, and we all should, but we should be intent with getting through it and getting towards a healthy resolve, okay? But a lot of times it really is, it's emotion. Depersonalize it. Like I said, some people, though, they do. That's how they go about conflict resolution, because whether it's insecurities or posturing or you've wronged them or things have been said, and it does. Sometimes it is, like I said, a character assassination in the midst of trying to get to the task and the black and white issue that needs to be resolved. But at that point in time, don't take personal offense. But if it's really nasty and it continues, then you need to put into a game plan of revisiting this. And you need to go back with empathy, sympathy, but not to be a doormat to someone's dysfunction either. Go back and ask the right questions. Have I offended you? What have I done that is potentially continuing to create this awkward tension between us? Because I want to be able to get back to a place where we can be on point with the mission at hand. Marriage, professional, kids, whatever that might be. When you go back and you ask the right questions and the right posture of humility and gratitude, I think the only thing that it does is potentially do is set you up to succeed. And not only that, succeed in a way where you can potentially disarm and dismantle whatever kind of edge or personal offense that other person might have. But a lot of times, see, that's where it is. It's where we go wrong, is that we let our emotions dictate how we are going to respond. If you have that link, take time to look through it because this is great. You know, it talks about the different stages. Stage 1 is at the center. That's like homeostasis. That's where all is good within the relationship, okay? And then things begin to spiral out of control. Something's wrong, but we're just not sure what it is. There's tension, there's disconnect. People aren't talking, and this closeness that you once had is not there. So you know something's awry. What do you do then? What do you do? Do you go, you know, guns a-blazing, pointing fingers, or do you go with questions and humility, sympathy, and gratitude because you know that at the end of the day, what the best thing is for both parties in accomplishing that mission is just getting to a place of resolve, eliminating tension, eliminating conflict. But I don't like conflict. I like to avoid it. You shouldn't. Don't be worried about it. Stage 2, a problem to be resolved. The problem is identified. It's issue focused. I love that. Issue focused. It's not character. It's not personality. It's not person focused. Issue focused. Please. But what if I did everything right? What did you do that you thought was right? Or did you do more what you felt was right? If you can stay issue focused, I think that your chance to actually get to a place of resolve increases exponentially. Because the more you get to just the issue and you have a little bit of emotion and empathy and you talk and you listen and you ask the right engaging questions and you formulate a plan, the more successful you're going to be at resolve. 3, a person to differ with. It's now the other person focused. Sides are determined. Discussion changes from what is the best solution to who is right and what is wrong. I love this. But what if? But what if? I want to be right. Sometimes, even though you are right, it doesn't mean that you have the platform to speak your mindset or your perspective just to bulldoze your way to getting to be right. Sometimes being right means you just need to shut your pie hole and just listen, especially if you're on the receiving end. But if you're on the end that's actually bringing the conflict to the table, I want to ask you, if you were the one receiving it, how would you want to be talked to? How would you want to be approached when it comes to conflict resolution? I think that if you approach it in that perspective, keeping it issue focused, emotions in check, and you're the one bringing conflict to the table and you are going with a mindset, how would I want to be talked to? The chance for you to win with that other person increases exponentially. Why? Because you're not going with the mindset of who is right and who is wrong. Stage 4, it turns into a dispute to who's going to win. It's now issue focused, but with a greater intensity that veers towards a personal attack. Stage 5, it's a person to attack. Stage 6, it's my face to save. Now that I'm coming to the table, I've got to save face and I've got to keep my posture and I'm the person that's in control here and you will listen to me and we will be resolved. Whatever, and it just spirals out of control. And we're continuing to go to the place where more damage is being done, more hits are being brought to the table in regards to bringing defeat instead of resolve and unity. 7, a person to expel, withdraw from, or ruin. Have you ever felt like that in the midst of conflict resolution where that person is on an actual intentional course to ruin you? Or have you done that accidentally to where you've brought conflict to the table to try to work something through, but your main objective was because of something that you're feeling on the inside, you feel wronged or you've been offended, and now your ultimate objective is to destroy and ruin that individual? Because let's be honest, sometimes how we feel is how we want others to feel so that they understand why it is that this is happening. Avoid that at all costs so that you can have a successful opportunity to reach resolve. When we start getting beyond stages 2 and 3 on this graph that was so beautifully put together, when we get beyond those stages, we don't actually get to a place of healthy resolve. It literally is who's right, who's wrong, who wins, who loses, and the damage therefore is done. Stage 8, the aftermath. I love this. That's why I think the graph, when it correlates and it looks like a hurricane, the aftermath. When all of the emotion is at bay, when everything calms down and settles down, you see the damage that has been done, and your lack of forward thinking before getting into conflict resolution and doing the right preparation mentally, going in with the right posture, the right heart, the right attitude, you set yourself up for more aftermath of chaos and destruction and damage than actually boarding up your house, putting boards across the windows and going into preparation mode so that you don't have this crazy amount of aftermath and cleanup to do. The aftermath, stage 8, all are affected. Some are embarrassed, some are not satisfied and want to ruin the reputations of others, and some are full of shame and now lose confidence in themselves. Yeehaw, conflict resolution. I love this. Please do me a favor, use this graph to a degree. It's a great visual, but it's also 8 steps that are going to help you really attack conflict resolution in a way that are going to set you up to succeed with the people around you. If you're on the receiving end of conflict, or you're the one that's bringing conflict and tension to the table in hopes to resolve with that person, I still like to think that, how would you want to be approached with conflict resolution? How would you want to be talked to? How would resolve be worded if it was being brought to you? Then use that when bringing it to the table with other people. Keep your emotions at bay. Do a checkup from the neck up, an old Zig Ziglar term. Do a checkup from the neck up. Make sure that your attitude is right, that your emotions are in bay, and that you have the best intentions for that person sitting across the table with you, because I know at the end of the day, that's how you would want somebody who's bringing conflict to the table with you. That's how you would want them to approach you. Conflict resolution, ladies and gentlemen, it's inevitable. Actually, I shouldn't say resolution is inevitable. Resolution isn't always attained, but conflict is inevitable. But how you go about it is up to you. Once again, it's another ability for you to choose to bring that best representative of yourself to the table instead of letting emotion dictate who comes to the table. You decide, but it really is based on doing what is right versus what is right. And if you do it, but what if I do everything right? Then revisit. If things do spiral out of control, let the dust settle a little bit. Go back and ask the right questions, clarify, and just get to the black and white points that were addressed and say, I just want to make sure that I heard you correctly, because I really do want us to get to a place of resolve, that we can be forward thinking, on point, working towards the mission at hand so that we can succeed together. That to me is really ultimately how you really attain true resolve. Both parties do matter. It's not who's right and who is wrong. It's not who wins and who loses. It's about how we can get through this together and always get back to a place of unity, forward thinking, on the same page, working towards the same mission. Thanks for joining me this morning. Honestly, please do comment, like, and share if you have anything that you would like me to talk about. This whole idea of conflict resolution was brought to me by somebody that I know, and he's like, I just want to know about conflict resolution. What are your thoughts on it? How do I attain it? How do I go about doing it? And it's not an easy thing, because this person avoids conflict like the plague. Why? Because it's not fun. So we addressed it. If you have anything that you would like me to address, put it in the comments and I will come alongside, and I promise you this, I will address it in a random, funny, kind of crazy, demented way. Why? Because that's what we do on Wednesday Morning Cup of Crazy with Ross Allen Skorzewski. With that, we'll see you next Wednesday.